Tinubu is in trouble because Atiku now has the most brutal evidence to destroy his political career. We understand that when we were going through the election petition tribunal ish cases, Tinubu went to the United States of America through a representative. He begged the FBI and CIA that please do not release the files that show my drug involvement while I was in USA within the period of 1989 to 1992. I mean, we understand that Tinubu has some serious cases that are yet to get an answer or that he is yet to respond to. First and foremost, his certificate, then also his name, then most importantly, now that Nigeria is called a country that is being led by an alleged former drug kingpin. You know, the allegations are too much, and Atiku as a northerner has vowed, in accordance to the Northern's agenda, that they will do everything to destroy, to break down, to crush the wings of any Southern president that does not yield to their demands and, of course, their orders. Before I continue with the story of Tinubu, let me tell you what they did. The first person was MKO Abiola in 1993, when Abiola vowed that he was going to restructure, and he brought a manifesto that he called Hope 93. In that manifesto, Abiola said he was going to restructure the country. Abiola said he was going to ensure that the North Central, which was known as Middle Belt as at then, will be an independent state that will never suffer or that will never be subjugated by the Fulani oligarchs. Thirdly, Abiola said he was going to ensure that we now begin to have what we call religious tolerance, or we call it religious delineation, where we are going to have lines put in places. And more importantly, Abiola said he was going to make the British Empire less influential on Nigeria, which of course has become the most successful company in the list or in the committee of the Commonwealth nations. Because of this, the North, they struck. Boom. They struck, annulled the election, jailed Abiola, and we knew what happened afterwards. How today, Babangida, who committed these atrocities, handed over to Abacha, is still very much alive, and the man who could have saved this country by reforming or restructuring or putting us or returning us back to the regional government was denied. Then the second opportunity came. That second opportunity was not Obasanjo. It was not Yaradua. That second opportunity was the opportunity of when we have GEJ, Goodluck Ebelete Jonathan. But we know what they call him, right? They called him off forms, all manner of unprintable names, unimaginable names. They started calling his wife Shippopotamus. They started calling him a drunkard. They started framing him up onto and got to a point that they invited foreign Fulanese who are war mercenaries. And that was how we saw the beginning of the end of the Northern peace, wherein they brought in the Fulani who were hungry for lands, who wanted to amass lands that are blessed with bountiful natural resources. And we saw how insecurity ravaged the very robust economy of Jonathan. Under Jonathan, we saw how Nigeria was flourishing. You could literally buy a bag of rice for 3,000 naira, and the minimum wage as at then was 19,005. You can see that means your minimum wage can ordinarily get you close to 20 bags of rice. Of course, you don't need to buy one bag of rice per month, but what I'm trying to explain to you so that you can understand the emphasis of how these northern oligarchs can go to ensure that they destroy anything that wants to push Nigeria into prosperity, or shall I say, that wants to push Southerners, this includes the Yorubas, the Igbos, into what we call self-independence. Now Atiku is about to get on hold of Tinubu's drug files. Because what we have, as you can see on my screen, is Sahara Reporters, Daily Trust, Daily Post, Business Day, Vanguard, Punch have just broke the news that FBI, through the instruction of Donald Trump, have said, release it. If Nigeria happens to be the biggest black nation in the world, let us see who truly is leading them. It is unfortunate that this is the persons that the North supposedly supported. It is unfortunate that there is always a way that they've been able to always break our back in the South, because the South never supported this man. The South did not vote Tinubu into power. He knows. River State did not vote Tinubu. Lagos State did not vote Tinubu. Benue, Plateau did not vote Tinubu. Benue, I think maybe it was rigged, I don't know, but he won in that state. But when you look at in the whole of South, right, Tinubu won just roughly about maybe 4 states thereabout. Amongst 16 or 17 states in the South, Tinubu won I think just 4 or 5. He lost every other thing in the South, which simply means that Tinubu is not the Southern presidency, but a Northern presidency. And why did they vote him? Because they wanted a man who has an embargo. Are you with me? They wanted a man that has an embargo, so that when he gets there, it will become their asset. What do I mean by the asset? It will begin to do their bidding. That was the game plan. And indeed, they voted him and he got in there. Getting in there, Tinubu changed the tune of the music. Then Tinubu started coming with all manners of urbanization agenda, marginalization of the North in juicy positions. Yes, we have been hearing their cry. He has come to say that he wants to break the oligarchy of the North, of the Arewa, because the Arewa has swallowed the Middle Belt. He has said, I want to scatter it because I now want to be the new political juggernaut of the Nigerian contraption. I want to be in charge. We saw that Tinubu inherited the alleged bagman of Abacha. I mean, according to report, Chaguri had a close tie with Abacha, and it has always been reported that Chaguri was one of the financiers or one of the people whom through Abacha channeled monies. But today we know that the same Chaguri currently is the one that is the mastermind of Tinubu's policy directions. When it comes to contract awards, Tinubu has to consult him. When it comes to critical decisions that concerns this nation today, unfortunately, Tinubu has to direct him. I hope you are following this story. I'm going to show you the documentary of so many exposés that has been done about Tinubu in the next few minutes. But before I show you the documentary, why is Atiku hell-bent on becoming the president? Think no further. It is simple. He wants to expand the dynasty of the North. He wants to further deepen the grip the North have over the Nigerian contraption. If you are following me, you understand that between the period of 2015 to 2023, the spirit of northern conquest was reignited. We started seeing the constant usurpations of people's land, most especially within the region of the Middle Belt, southern Benue, hinterlands of Ondo, even inroads into Enugu and Ebonyi. These are places that share borders. Bauchi as a state originally, right? Southern Bauchi, which is about 60% of the population of the landmass of Bauchi, were Christians. But right now, most of the Christians have either been pied or they have been forcefully converted to Islam. And those that didn't want to either lose their life or convert have fled into Nasarawa state. So you have to understand that, unfortunately, as South, Tinubu is not someone we should fight for. Stay with me. Tinubu is not someone that we can fight for because of his embargoes. In fact, so many criticisms of Tinubu has been coming from the Southerners. The Northerners, some of the Northerners are the ones that have been, supporting him. And I've seen some middle belt, and this is why I said Tinubu is on a serious takedown instructions by the Fulani, by the Northerners, because Tinubu is just, he want to decouple middle belt. He want to come out like this middle belt from the corners. So you will see that the middle belt sort of give support to him, right? But we in the South sort of we just look at him that, man, we never supported you. So Tinubu is playing that game. And Atiku is very desperate to just ensure he brings this man down, has gotten one of the most brutal evidence. Hey, Tinubu is in pepper soup. I wonder if he will return back from Paris to Nigeria. But let's watch the video that exposes these kinds of shenanigans Tinubu involved himself in.
The U.S. District Court would seem like an odd place to begin this story, but this is no ordinary story. The main character in this story is an individual whose entire existence is as puzzlingly mysterious as it is loud in public. For at least 30 years, Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been at or near the grinding phase of frontline politics in Nigeria. Yet the peak 1 inch below the surface reveals just how little is actually known about this man, who some say is Nigeria's president in waiting. First of all, there is the age controversy. How old is the man really? What is his real date of birth? Short answer, no one actually knows. Like many Nigerians born into the less than auspicious circumstances that characterized his childhood in Iragbiji in Osun State, southwestern Nigeria, he himself may not even know. Similar controversy exists around what his actual name is. A popular theory is that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is an identity that he transitioned into at some point after moving to Lagos to live with his surrogate mother, Alhaja Abibatu Mogaji. The only thing every version of his life story has in common is that for the first 2 decades or so, he was apparently invisible and unmemorable. There are no childhood friends, there are no classmates, there are no neighbors, there are no colleagues that remember him. Sometime in the mid-1970s, however, he somehow materialized at the international airport in Lagos, holding a passport with a US visa and a one-way ticket to Chicago in hand. From his arrival in Chicago in 1975, his story then becomes easier to track and verify. So what do we know about this guy? We know that he spent 2 years gaining an associate degree at Richard J. Daley College in Chicago. From there, he proceeded on to Chicago State University, where he studied accounting, completing his bachelor's degree in 1979. Subsequently, his story appeared straightforward and prosaic. He got a job as an accountant at Mobil Oil Nigeria Limited in Fairfax, Virginia, got married to Oluremi, went on to have 3 kids with her, after 3 fruitful indiscretions, shall we say. In a 2016 interview with The News, Tinubu claimed that his break into the financial big time came at the Big Four consultancy firm Deloitte, where he supposedly received an $850,000 bonus as a result of his work on a single on-site engagement at the Saudi state-owned oil firm Saudi Aramco. Now, for anyone with even a passing knowledge of corporate consultancy pay, the categorical dishonesty in this claim needs no explanation. A notable organization that did such outreach work with heroin addicts was the Chicago Recovery Alliance. While researching this story, I reached out to its current executive director, John Werning, to get a sense of how the heroin epidemic changed law enforcement practices from the 1990s to date in Chicago. And his comments were very predictably grim. He said, "Heroin, of course, has consequences. But I think we'll probably say that the more major impact is the draconian laws around how heroin was policed. I think that it's pretty well established that there was a very specific targeting of folks who use drugs generally, but also heroin in particular, and it was mostly targeted toward the policing of black and brown communities. Federal investigators had determined that Edwards' heroin supply came from a Nigerian drug dealer in Chicago called Abiodun Agbele. Abiodun had earlier agreed to work for the feds in exchange for lighter sentencing, and as part of the plea deal, he revealed everything he knew about the heroin trade in Chicago. Located at the junction of 4 states with a combined population exceeding 27 million at the time, Chicago was a key trafficking hub in the American heroin trade, and as it turned out, the wholesale trade of an especially potent form of heroin from Southeast Asia in 1990 Chicago was controlled by Nigerian criminal gangs. The following excerpt is taken from the January 2001 Illinois Drug Threat Assessment published by the U.S. Justice Department's National Drug Intelligence Center. Nigerian criminal groups are responsible for wholesale distribution of most of the SEA heroin shipped into Chicago. SEA heroin, which is 80 to 90% pure, is being sold by Nigerian traffickers for $80,000 to $110,000 per kilogram. Wholesalers in Chicago usually sell heroin without cutting it to minimize the handling of the product and their exposure to law enforcement. Now, Agbele himself was no criminal mastermind, however. As he testified under oath, that honor belonged to a man who went by the name of Adegboyega Muiz Akonde, who was apparently his uncle. Shortly after Agbele's arrival in the US, Akonde had taken him under his wing and showed him the ropes of wholesale heroin trafficking. When Akonde returned to Nigeria in mid-1990, Agbele was left in charge of selling regular heroin shipments from Nigeria to Lee Edwards and delivering the profits to his uncle. In the meantime, the Nigerian-led heroin trade in Chicago fed an addiction epidemic that became so bad that it changed local health and law enforcement practices. For the first time, providing addicts with free access to safe syringes and needles to ensure that they did not share them and possibly spread HIV became a core focus of public health policy. In other words, SEA heroin from Nigeria was so potent and addictive that public health policy in Chicago shifted away from trying to make heroin addicts stop using altogether to merely ensuring that they used safely. Now, while all of this is going on, there was an interesting subplot taking place in the background. An accountant living in the Chicago area who worked for Mobil Oil Nigeria with a declared monthly income of $2,400 had just deposited over $1.4 million in the bank. He had no known source of income apart from his day job, but he had become friends with Akonde and Agbele, discovering one key piece of information in the process: drug dealers need accountants too. Soon, he will find himself holding and wiring money on behalf of a Nigerian heroin gang in Chicago. Fast forward a little bit to January 1992, and he will find himself the subject of a US federal investigation. Fast forward a bit further in the same year, and he would successfully run for office in Nigeria as a senator for Lagos West. Then another politician, also said to have ties to international drug trafficking, would successfully run for president in Nigeria on a controversial all-Muslim ticket in 1993. The election will be annulled, the politician will be jailed, and ultimately another Nigerian military coup will take place in 1994. This accountant will find himself exiled and working with the National Democratic Coalition, NADECO, to unseat a kleptocrat military dictator. Then the dictator would unexpectedly drop dead one day in 1998, followed in quick succession by the jailed politician with the alleged drug links. This accountant would return to Nigeria a hero and successfully run for governor of Lagos in 1999. The kleptocrat dictator's erstwhile bagman, who helped launder over $4 billion, will become the accountant's new best friend, as an erstwhile Chicago drug gang's loader will start his new lifetime mission of capturing Africa's largest subnational economy and turning it into his personal fiefdom. A major political opponent of the accountant would end up strangled to death in his bedroom 10 months to an election which his chosen candidate would go on to win. Said opponent's son would subsequently be offered a cushy job working for that candidate. He would accept the offer. And if you're already struggling to follow this unlikely sequence of events, don't worry, it gets worse.